Where do the Raiders currently rank, and what kind of challenges will head coach Pete Carroll have to face to improve the rankings and the overall product of the Silver and Black? That plus more on Thursday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for July 3rd, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. Show grows each and every day because of your consistent support, and of course the great job that my man Ari does on the YouTube page, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day. We appreciate him. We shout him out. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces, and Raider Nation, there's no doubt about it, we appreciate you. Even in the slower time of the season, in between mandatory minicamp and training camp, when there's not a whole lot going on, you still show up, you still show out for the show each and every day. That does not go unnoticed, and we definitely appreciate that. So tip of the cap to you, Raider Nation, for chiming in on the show. Again, you can hit up Ari at Ari Produces. You want to hit me up on Twitter at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, we've got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. That's how we'll close out the show today. We'll hear from you, calls, texts, even tweets, right? Really good stuff that we've been talking about, different subjects that we've been talking about throughout the course of the past few days. We'll definitely hear from you as we close the show. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Segment number 2, want to talk about a really good subject that I had on my radio show, Unnecessary Roughness, on Raider Nation Radio 920 on Wednesday, talking about Pete Carroll and his challenges that he's going to face to get this organization where he wants it to be. We know this team has not been where they need to be in a very long time. We talk about commitment to excellence. We talk about just win, baby, and it not being a slogan. Obviously, he wants to have a winner. So what is it going to take in a division that's very difficult, AFC West, right? We'll talk about that in segment number 2. Really good conversation. I've got 3 key points that I think that Pete Carroll's going to face, that he's going to have to try to overcome to allow this team to get where we all want it to be. So we'll talk about that in segment number 2, today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here in segment number 1, news and notes. There's not a whole lot of news and notes to get to. Again, it's a slower time of the year, but you will hear from Ryan Clark, former Super Bowl champ, or I guess you're never a former Super Bowl champ. He's a Super Bowl champ with the Pittsburgh Steelers, longtime safety in the NFL, part of ESPN now. He was on a podcast with Mina. Matter of fact, Mina and Lenny show that they have on YouTube, ranking all the different teams across the league. So you'll hear what they had to say about the Raiders coming up after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that's FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. You know, there's a lot of rankings going on right now. We've heard rankings about teams. We heard rankings about quarterbacks, head coaches, defenses, supporting cast, running backs. We've heard every kind of ranking that there can be. And look, when training camp opens up in a couple of weeks, you already know it's going to be on and popping. There's going to be so many news and notes going on. Like, there's not even a lot of free agency moves going on right now. There's some free agents that are still out there, like Justin Simmons, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, and others that still have not decided what team that they want to be on. The closer and closer to training camp it gets, they'll start making decisions, maybe even into training camp. They'll make their decision. But right now, there's a lot of rankings going on. I got a lot of respect for Mina. Obviously, I have a lot of respect for RC, Ryan Clark, as well. So, again, they're going through this exercise where they're picking, team 1 against team 2 and deciding where they put them. And, all right, this team advances on. Like, here's the Buffalo Bills versus, I don't know, say maybe the Baltimore Ravens. All right, we're going to pick Buffalo, move on. Baltimore will fall in right after them or whatever. I'm just using that for example. It's just off the top of my head. So they had the Raiders, and they got to the Raiders finally in the 20s, and they had them come in at 25. That's nothing to, get excited about or fired up about. I know Raider Nation is going to be like, of course they had them ranked at 25. But remember, they only won 4 games in 2024. So you have to understand why they would have them ranked so low. That doesn't mean that they don't have the opportunity to grow, right? And they'll have that opportunity throughout the course of, the preseason, training camp, all that good stuff, and the regular season when they ultimately are playing games that matter. You start winning games, obviously your power rankings start to go up. I really thought this was a cool little conversation to have because it ties in with the conversation that we were having on the Raider Squad show on Wednesday morning, the new show that we have here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Lincoln Kennedy, myself, and Chantel Chan that does a really good job of being the Howard Cosell and really kind of setting me and Big Lincoln up for conversations. And she was asking us to rank the teams in the AFC West. And, I was like, as much as I want to say that the Raiders are the second best team or third best team, They won 4 games. So until you actually get out there and you win some games, you can't really move up who you are. And Big Lincoln basically said the same thing. Hey, man, the Raiders are on the bottom looking up, right? And again, when you're coming off a 4-win season, that's just what it is. But Ryan Clark, Mina, they ranked the Raiders. They had them at 25. Obviously, that's out of 32 teams. Again, that's not a glowing review. It's nothing to get super excited about. But there was positivity in what they had to say about the silver and black. Really, why I want you to hear this. Check it out.
Yeah, I went Raiders here. Gino, Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll was trying to make Las Vegas, Seattle again, right? He understood that there were some pieces he wanted there. I think you go out and get Genty. It will be interesting to see if they're good enough up front to utilize him, right? If the run game, if the run game is able to sort of not necessarily excel, but be a big part of this team, because we know what Pete Carroll wants to do.
Obviously, you firsthand watched this in the NCAA championship. Are you as high on Chip Kelly 2.0 as I am?
Yes, I am. He changed
And was
He
so good at Ohio State.
And here's what I'll say, Mina. In a day and age where what he started in college football is what everybody does. And he had 3 pros on the outside, right? He had 3 legit pros. One guy is going to be a top 3 pick when he decides to enter the draft in 2 years. And there were times where I'm obviously sitting in the stadium when they're playing Notre Dame, who's beat up front. And he's like, you know what? We're going to go 12. You know what? We're going to go, like, we're going to run the football. We're going to find ways to use 21. And even though I have all of these people on the outside, this is where I can win. And you know what else? We're going to huddle.
You know who else is going to do those things? Go 12 and run the football? The Las Vegas Raiders. So, yeah, I feel like we got a little preview of that. I like this offense. I just don't like the defense. That's why they're so low.
They're not very good.
A lot of good stuff there, really. And it's funny when you hear a team ranked 25th, you're thinking, oh, there's not going to be anything good. Now, at the end, they talked about the defense and the fact that they're not very good. I just think that there's a lot of questions about the defense. I think that there's a lot of, there's a lot of youth. Again, we'll talk about challenges coming up in segment number 2, but there's a lot of, uncertainties about the defense. So I don't think where RC said, yeah, they're not very good. I don't think it's that they're not very good. It's just there's some spots on that defense that we're not sure about yet. Now, that could result in them not being very good, or that could result in them, stepping up and filling big voids, and all of a sudden, boom, they are really good. Again, that's remained to be seen. Kind of a tease when we start talking about challenges that Pete Carroll's going to face. We'll do that in segment number 2. But you hear what they had to say about Geno Smith. Mina has been very adamant about Geno Smith. You heard what Ryan Clark had to say about Geno Smith and Pete Carroll trying to repeat what was going on in Seattle. And I think the most important little nugget in that, couple-minute clip that we just heard right there was the conversation about Chip Kelly. And RC talking about Chip Kelly has changed, and he's evolved, and he's learned, and what he did at Oregon, and what he did, obviously at Philadelphia and the 49ers and UCLA, and then obviously last year at Ohio State, and having all the weapons that he had there at Ohio State, but still in the national championship game decided that, hey, this is how we're going to butter our bread, is by running the rock. Obviously, he had a couple really good running backs, and that's what the Raiders want to do, right? They want to run the rock. They want to line up in 12 personnel. They want to use Brock Bowers. They want to use Big Mike, Michael Mayer, right? That's ideal. So to hear a former player be able to look at what Chip Kelly is doing and saying, yeah, this guy has evolved. He's changed from the guy he was when he was in the NFL the first time. I think that that's very encouraging. It kind of goes back to, a couple of weeks ago when I was talking about head coach Pete Carroll and him evolving, right? Because there was a lot of questions when he even got hired. Well, is he going to still be the Pete Carroll that he was at the end of his Seahawks run, or is he going to be a guy who continues to evolve? And then we hear, yeah, he's evolving. Chip Kelly has evolved. I think that's nothing but a positive when it comes to the Raiders and what they could potentially do. Again, it's all potential until you actually go out there and do it. It's all on paper. And the Raiders look good on paper, but you don't win games on paper. You got to actually go out there, execute, and get it done. But for the most part, I do think that they're in a good position. And I think that the way that Pete Carroll is approaching training camp, as we talked about it with the glowing review on Wednesday's show, right, just talking about the way that he's setting it up, I think that he's preparing this team the best way he can to set them up for success. Division's really tough. Conference is really tough. But with that being said, right, they still have an opportunity to be a really good team. Clearly, they've got to get off to a fast start. They can't be playing catch-up towards the end of the season like they've done so many times in the past. But I just wanted to pass along what Ryan Clark and Mina both had to say as they were going through their rankings of the silver and black. And again, you take the rankings with a grain of salt at this stage of the game. 25, okay, so be it. Again, they won 4 games, so they're not going to be up there in the top 10. There's no doubt. Clearly, they have room to grow. How will they grow? What challenges will they face while they try to grow? Well, we'll talk about that in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that is FanDuel. And as you know, summer sports are in full swing. Whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, right? Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. You don't want that burn. You want to burn them while you're making some money, some dollar bill, y'all, right? You can use FanDuel to track your favorite matchups. The app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions. Fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. And you can place a same-game parlay. You can watch a bet right into the 9th inning. FanDuel makes it, feel like you're part of the action, just like that. If you're new to FanDuel, no problem. New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to talk about challenges. Challenges that head coach Pete Carroll is going to face in his first year as the Raiders head coach. What is it going to take for him to get this team where they need to be? Obviously, winning 4 games is not it. We've talked about 8, 9, possibly 10 wins. Well, what is it going to take to get there? Now, we can go through the X's and O's. We could talk about the execution of the offense. We could do a lot of that. But there's just going to be some just natural challenges that he's going to have to face, and he's going to have to find a way to overcome. And we had this discussion on my radio show on Wednesday, Unnecessary Roughness on Raider Nation Radio 920. And, man, there was some fantastic feedback. So I enjoy being able to come to the table, bring a topic to the table, and get some feedback. Locked On Raider Podcast, voicemail line 707-654-4693. I know we'll get a lot of good calls, a lot of good texts, just talking about challenges, biggest challenges Pete Carroll's going to face. And for me, my number one challenge was the youth. This is something that I've talked about, something that Lincoln Kennedy has talked about. We've talked about together. We talked about on the Raider Squad show, youth. And this is mainly on defense, right? Going back to what Ryan Clark and Mina were saying in segment number 1 where, well, they're not very good. Well, they're just young. Like, I know Max Crosby's not young necessarily, right? I know that Christian Wilkins, he's not necessarily young. Malcolm Kuntz, he's obviously in a 1-year deal. He's not the youngest dude. But, I mean, you're looking at the corners, right? The secondary. There's a lot of youth in the secondary. Outside of Jeremy Chin, who's in the back end, the safety position, there's a lot of youth. Jacorian Bennett's going in year 3, but Jacorian Bennett's also going into coach number 3, system number 3. I mean, it's the same defensive coordinator, which is great, but still it's a different philosophy, right? And he hasn't been able to finish the full season, so he's still kind of new to the game. You got Eric Stokes, who I get it, he's not brand new, he's not a rookie, but he hasn't played well since his first year in the league. He's been injured a lot. So there's still a lot of youth, really for him. There's still a growing curve. Darian Porter, right? 3rd-round pick out of Iowa State. And, oh, by the way, he hasn't been playing cornerback that lot this long. This was a guy that was a converted wide receiver. That's youth. DeCam Richardson, right? Former 4th-round pick from just a year ago. He's only in 2nd year. So that's a lot of youth. So right now, as much as I want to say, oh, this is going to be the starting corners, I don't know. I don't know who's going to be the starting corners. Oh, by the way, the Raiders lost Nate Hobbs as well. You knew what you were going to get for him anytime he was out there at the nickel cornerback position. I think Darnay Holmes is going to hold that one down. But again, that's going to be something that they're going to have to go out there and earn as well. So the whole secondary is young. Oh, by the way, Isaiah Polomao at the back end of the safety position, he's new, right? I mean, he was forced into action last year when Marcus Epps went down. He did get rewarded with a contract extension, but this is the first time that he's going into training camp as a starter. So that's new. And then Jeremy Chin is new to the team. So, I mean, he's been in the league for a handful of years, multiple teams, but this is a brand new team that he's on. So, again, new, which to me relates to youth, right? And who knows what's going to happen with Christian Wilkins? Is he going to be available when training camp starts? Is he going to be available when the regular season starts? What is his status going to be? Adam Butler, he's been around for a while. He earned the 3-year contract extension. That's great. He's not, a young cat. He's a guy that's a veteran that knows what it's going to take. He had to step up when Wilkins went down last year. He's going to have to step up again this year, if Wilkins is not available, and just step up in general, right? A guy like Jonah Laulu, right? He's a young cat, right? He's another guy that provides some depth. And, of course, the Raiders went out and drafted a couple defensive tackles, more youth. So you get the theme of what I'm saying. I think the number one thing that Pete Carroll is going to have to overcome is youth. Guys are going to make mistakes, right? I mean, that's just simple. They're learning the NFL game. They're going to make mistakes. They're learning this scheme. And the thing that you hope for the most is that they don't make the same mistake twice, right? They don't get, beat multiple times. Like if you're in the secondary, you don't get beat on the same move, right? You learn from it because you're going to get beat. You're going to make mistakes. But how many times can you limit the mistakes is going to be the biggest key. And if the Raiders offense is good, like we think it has a chance to be good, the defense is going to have to step up and make some plays. That's my first challenge that I think Pete Carroll is going to have to overcome. Second challenge, which is very important as well, I would probably put it right underneath the youth, is the offensive line. I just mentioned the offense and how I think that it has a chance to be really good. You got to find the right 5 guys that can allow this offense to go, right? Last year in Seattle, Geno Smith turned the ball over a lot, especially in the red zone. He had, 21 touchdowns and 15 interceptions? That's not going to cut it. He took 50-something sacks. You know why? Because he was rushing. He was under duress all the time. His offensive line was not very good. So can the Raiders find the starting 5? Can they find the 5 guys that they need to move forward with that offensive line to give Chip Kelly in this offense an opportunity to be good? Right? We know that Chip Kelly, from everything he's done and the offenses that he runs, he wants that offensive line to get out and run. He wants to see guys pulling. He wants to see, that offensive line moving, right? Opening up holes, right? And then being able to block for the quarterback as well. Are those guys going to be able to do it? Colton Miller's healthy. That's a good thing. JPJ is back to his natural position, the center position. That's a good thing. DJ Glaze, I think, has a chance to get better. But 2 out of the 3 offensive linemen you're talking about are second-year guys, right? There's going to be competition at the guard position. And, where does Charles Grant and Caleb Rogers, where do they fit in? Rookies, young dudes, right? What kind of competition are they going to provide during training camp? So the job that Pete Carroll and company are going to have to do, Brennan Carroll, his son, who's the offensive line coach, going to have to identify the starting 5 of that offensive line ASAP and get them to be all on the same page. Right? When I was on vacation, I took a picture. I never posted it on social media because I tried to do none of that while I was on vacation, and I feel pretty good. I actually patted myself on the back that I didn't do any kind of social media while I was on vacation, but I took a picture and a video, as a matter of fact, of like 5 guys rowing in a boat. They were practicing. They were going to have a race, I believe, on Saturday morning, so they were out there. They were out there practicing on the ocean that our condo was right across from. So I looked out one day, and I see them rowing, and they're all going, everything is at the same time, same stroke, everything, right? If the front guy's stroke is going, everyone's all in line, right? I mean, you know what it's like when you're trying to row a boat, right? When you're in a canoe and you're going, everyone's got to go at the same rate, right? They all the left hand has to know what the right hand's doing. Like everyone has to be in sync with each other. That's what the offensive line's gonna have to do. So they're gonna have to learn each other. They're gonna have to learn each other's tendencies as quickly as possible. And be all on the same page to give that Raiders offense an opportunity to be the offense that they want to be and that we expect that they can be, led by Geno Smith, led by Chip Kelly, Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, Big Mike, right? I mean, the list goes on and on. Dante Thornton Jr., another young guy. Trey Tucker, another young guy, right? Again, going back to that theme of youth that I had as challenge number 1. So the offensive line has got to be put in place and figured out as quickly as possible. And then finally, number 3 for me, how do the Raiders deal with success or failures, right? Because it's both. There's going to be games, like we reference all the time, that week 2 game against Baltimore where they go into Baltimore and they pull up the surprise win. But then they laid an egg week 3 against the Carolina Panthers at home, the season home opener, in a game that they had no business losing. So they weren't able to deal with success very well. So how do the Raiders, when they have success, how are they going to deal with it? Are they going to follow it up with a stinker, or are they going to be able to build off that? And on the flip side of that, how do they deal with failures? They're going to have a game or 2 where they're stinkers, where we come back and it's like, man, what the hell happened in that game? What that didn't look like a Pete Carroll led team. What was really going on? You're just going to have days like that. That's just how it is sometimes, right? But do you allow that loss to beat you twice? You can't. You got to be able to clear that. You got to make sure that in your mind, you understand what you did wrong. You go and look at the film, and then you flush it. And if you're able to do that, then you clear your mind and you're able to come back in the next game and be really good, right? And so that's going to be the biggest thing, right? How do you deal with success? How do you deal with failures? Because they're both going to happen in the regular season. and just in football in general. We all know it happens. So how does Pete Carroll, again, going back to youth, how does he handle that with a young team? How does he get their minds to forget about it and just move on to the next game? Okay, that wasn't the way we were supposed to play. That's not our standard. That's not who we are. We know what winning football looks like. It wasn't that. All right, let's get back to it. Right, which goes back to all the themes that they have for the 2025 training camp, right? Like, all their competition Wednesday, turnover Thursday, no repeat Friday, right? Going back to those failures, no repeat, right? Review Saturday, right? All those different, the different themes that they have, that they're trying to set it up, and he's trying to set it up as game ready as it would be in the regular season. He's trying to do that in training camp. So for me, Pete Carroll's biggest challenges for this team to have a chance to be successful in 2025, how do you deal with the youth? How do you help get these young guys into where they need to be, right? Dealing with the youthful, especially defense, how are you going to get them up to speed as quickly as possible? The one thing I'll say about a team that's got a lot of young dudes on it, at least you can teach them and coach them your way before they learn bad habits or they learn something else that you don't want them to do. That's the one thing I can say about it, because how many times have you heard someone say, well, this guy's just stuck in his ways. It's just who he is. Well, at least Pete Carroll's getting these young guys while they're still young where they haven't developed those bad habits yet. He can teach them his way, put his culture, put them in his culture, get them in his locker room immediately and kind of coach them up that way. So that could be an advantage, but they're still young dudes at the end of the day, and it's hard to rely on a bunch of young dudes in the NFL just because you know how competitive it is. Offensive line, got to find the starting five as soon as possible. And then how do you deal with success? And how do you deal with failures? Would love to hear from you. 707-654-4693. That's a Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line. What kind of challenges do you think head coach Pete Carroll is going to face in 2025 trying to put the Raiders where they need to be? Your calls and texts and even tweets will close out the show next here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. We'll start things off with a call from Raider Big C in L.A. He's calling to talk about the training camp schedule that I brought up on Wednesday's show and what his thoughts about it were. Here's Raider Big C in L.A.
It's Raider Big C from L.A. I think what Pete Carroll's doing is going to correlate everything into the regular season, and we've said it multiple times in this podcast. You've said it multiple times with the many coaching regimes you've seen while in Vegas and also covering the Raiders. If you think about it, competition Wednesday. Well, you look at a regular, typical NFL schedule, games on Sunday, they come on Monday, off on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, practice, Saturday, a walkthrough or travel day. Wednesday, your first day back, competition Wednesday. Thursday, turnover Thursday. Right? Getting closer to game day. Let's ramp it up a little bit. Friday, no mistake Friday. Makes sense. Friday is typically your last full day of work before the game, and then Saturday you have your walkthrough or it could be your bonus day. And then Monday, hey, if we lost or if they lost and they come in and notice mistakes, okay, you tell the truth. You say what's on your mind. You're not gonna hold back, forever hold your peace type of stuff. So I think what he's doing is amazing. He's gonna show a blueprint of what he expects his team to be. He's going to come in, like you always say, compete. And every day, if you have a team, it's going to give everyone a little bit of an advantage so they'll know when it comes on Sunday, you put everything out on that field. Everyone that's out there, that's from the star players to the coaches to the water boys to the people in the booth, you yourself, especially all the fans that pay their hard-earned money to go see a winning product and a team that we know will be competing. I said it on your radio show today. The best thing is that I want to see this team at least come into the fourth quarter with a chance to win. If I see that, this is Raider Big C from LA. Out. Raiders!
Big C, thanks so much for the call. It's always great to hear from you. And there's no doubt, man, just kind of like I mentioned at the end of segment number 2 there, he being Pete Carroll is trying to make practices, training camp, everything. They're trying to make it as game week ready and just like similar as possible, right? They're really trying to make them be in that kind of situation. And like I said, I even saw that at the end of mandatory minicamp, that final day when I thought that they were going to just go ahead and call it. And not only did he have practice, but he went to overtime. Said, hey, they called down and said that we needed to go to overtime, right? The game wasn't done yet, so we had to go to overtime. Like, he tries to put them in so many game-type situations. And even, like you mentioned, set them up for a game week with that training camp schedule. I'm here for it. I really am. It gets me excited just to see how it all shakes out when it's, when training camp is going on starting at the end of July. But thanks so much for that call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Paulie B in the 559. So, Q, it's Paulie B in the 559. Hope you enjoyed your well-deserved vacation. Wanted to ask you about that August 2nd practice that's in the stadium. How can we acquire our tickets for that? Thanks, Q, for the time. Thanks so much, Paulie B, for the text. I appreciate you. I'm not sure. I know that tickets are available because I had a faithful listener to not only the Locked On Raiders podcast, but also my radio show, Unnecessary Roughness, Raider Nation Radio 920, hit me up and let me know that he already got his tickets. So I would suggest maybe Raiders.com. You go to that and check it out. I know last year the game was free, but you still had to basically register for your tickets. I don't think it's free this year. I'm not 100% sure exactly how it's going to play out. I'll try to get as much information as possible, but I would just go to Raiders.com and start looking for the info. But I can promise you, August 2nd, I'm looking at it right now. It's practice number 9, 1 p.m. mock game at Allegiant Stadium. So there you go. That's the details that I do know, but I'll try to get a little bit more information for you. Thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate that. And if anyone else out there, right, I want to make sure I pass that along. If anyone else out there absolutely does know, like maybe a season ticket holder knows the exact information, please hit us up. 707-654-4693. Give the details so I can pass it along to Paulie B. Thanks so much for that, Raider Nation. We appreciate you in advance. Up next, got a call from Raider Rex. He's calling to talk about head coach Pete Carroll and what he noticed about him when he got mad while he was a Seahawks head coach. Here he is, Raider Rex.
Hello, this is Raider Rex, and I was calling in about Pete Carroll and his training camp. I actually like that he has themes for his training camp. I was like, that's pretty cool, but I wanted to really say, I don't really know too much about Pete Carroll, but I used to watch him because my friend was a Seattle Seahawks fan. And I remember the game when Josh Jacobs, we knocked him out the playoffs. My friend was so mad that day he turned off the TV. I was like, turn that TV back on. Let me see my boy Josh Jacobs take you guys out. And that was so fun. But the thing I wanted to say, every time I watched Pete Carroll, when he got mad, he used to throw his gum into the crowd. And I used to be like, oh, that's nasty as hell. So I hope my Raiders do good this year because I would hate to see him throwing his gum all over the Allegiant Stadium. You feel me? But other than that, I think we're going to have a good season. We got some new bullets in our clip. We ready to start busting. Let's get it, baby. Raiders 100. Raider Nation. Let's win.
Rex in effects. Appreciate you, my man. Nice nugget there. And yeah, Pete Carroll throwing the gum. Not going to lie, definitely remember seeing that multiple times, right? He did do that a lot in Seattle. Hopefully that doesn't happen in Allegiant. Hopefully it doesn't happen at all in 2025, right? Hopefully whatever he sees out there on the field from the silver and black or sees from the officials or the opponent or whatever the case may be doesn't get him fired up to have to throw some gum. But we know how that goes, man. Coaches are who coaches are, right? They have their tendencies. They're going to be who they are. Pete Carroll is a fired up guy, so I'm sure we'll probably see some gum being thrown a few times at least in 2025. Interesting to see how it's going to play out, though, in Allegiant, right? Where is he going to throw it in Allegiant since it is an indoor facility? You don't want him throwing it on. Well, I mean, it's a grass field, though. It's not like, I don't know. It's going to be a question, right? Maybe he'll just throw it in the trash or throw it towards the trash, and then someone else will go pick it up. I'm not too sure, but it's so funny that you mentioned that because you're actually spot on. I do remember that. Thanks for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from the Raven. Good morning, Q. This is the Raven from SoCal. I just wanted to co-sign with the comments made by Smooth Raider in segment number 3 from Wednesday's show regarding Geno Smith and his behavior at the youth football game. There was indeed a little clickbait aspect to the reporting on this. However, I will have to agree that this was not a good look for Geno as he's an NFL quarterback, and although it's quite commendable of him to be given his time to coach a youth team, he's expected to carry himself with a bit more decorum than displayed. Smith responded to the viral video by stating, "This is how we talk in Dade County. Sorry, you might not understand. Carry on. But Geno, you are mentoring impressionable young men. One would think that you'd want them to carry themselves better than that." He goes on to say, everyone in Dade County is not going to make it to the NFL, the NBA, blow up in the music industry, or some other aspect of entertainment, which might allow them to carry themselves like that and it not be an issue. So the kids he's coaching and mentoring would benefit from being able to go out and compete in the job market and or business world with communication skills beyond hood speak. Hashtag be better. Hashtag Raider Nation Barroom.com. That's from the Raven in SoCal. And I don't disagree with that at all. I don't. I 100% agree. I want to make sure that everyone understands that. I don't want there to be any kind of misconception or act like I'm making an excuse for him. It's definitely not a good look. I only refrained from really commenting on it too much because I only saw a 30-second clip. And this is the reason why I even brought the conversation up at all, is because sometimes you'll see something and you'll get a 30-second clip and you won't know the full context. But there's no doubt about it. Geno Smith has to be careful as a starting quarterback in the NFL. From everything I know about him, and I'm not going to act like I know him well, like I've been around him a bunch. I've literally been around him a couple times at the facility, and that's it. That's it. So I don't know him like that or feel like I have a good relationship where I can speak on the kind of person he is. But from everything I've heard, he's a really good dude. He's a stand-up citizen. He doesn't go out and do too much. So I don't know. Again, that's why I say I don't know what happened in that event. I don't know what led him to that. I don't know. Like Smooth Raider said something about, some racial words were said. I don't know any of that because it was a 30-second video that I saw. And all I saw was Geno Smith talking about, that's why they pay me the big bucks. This is what I do. That's why they pay me the big bucks, right? And again, I didn't hear him cursing at anyone. But then again, I only saw one video. Maybe you guys have seen something else that I haven't seen. And if that's so, that's my fault for not seeing it. But I didn't see anything else. So I don't know what led to that. I don't know if they were just trash talking like we would do, at the domino table or on the hoop court, just messing around. Like, I don't know. And again, I know someone's going to take it wrong and think that I'm trying to make an excuse for them. I'm not. I don't want to come down hard on someone for a 30-second clip when who knows what happened throughout the course of a 4-quarter game or however long the game was that may have led to whatever conversation was going on. How much were they playing and how much was serious, I guess is the best way for me to put it. But I absolutely 100% agree with you. He's, being a mentor for young men and women and needs to do the best he can to give them a good example, a great example, as a matter of fact. So definitely don't disagree with that at all. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm sure that, there'll still be someone that's confused by it. It's fine. Not a problem, but definitely there's no excuses being made by me or I don't think anyone else for what Geno did. I just think that there's a lot of we don't know exactly what happened in that situation. But thanks for the text. Really good stuff. Appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Vader Raider in the 303 calling to talk about the Metallica concert this past weekend in Denver that many folks have talked about and has a little bit more knowledge that he wanted to drop about that little backstory. Here he is, Vader Raider in the 303.
Q, Raider Nation. It's your boy Vader Raider. So Q, just wanted to give you and Ari your flowers and thank you guys for everything you've been doing. I've been loving all the conversation that's been going on the last couple of weeks. It's been good stuff, especially the best of shows. Good content as usual. Couple points I wanted to hit on. I wanted to piggyback onto the thing that the one gentleman was talking about from this weekend here in Denver. I had the pleasure of going and seeing my band, my favorite band, of course. Again, I've been a lifelong Metallica fan and in addition to being a lifelong Raiders and Star Wars fan. So whenever you can combine all three of those things, well, it's just about the happiest place on earth. In any case, I just wanted to piggyback off of it, like I said. And so James Hetfield played football in high school, and he was a fan of a certain sticky-fingered wide receiver, number 25 for the Raiders. Of course, we all know that to be Fred Biletnikoff, and that was his idol growing up. And, of course, also, the 2003 championship game against the Titans, the boys loaded up a flatbed, and they played right before, either before or at halftime during that game, and that's because of James Hetfield's love for the Raiders. Also, Raider Q, I wanted to bring this up real quick. You were talking about North Carolina this past week and showing a lot of love for North Carolina, especially the philosophizer we got out there, which is really cool. Q, you left out one really, really important part of North Carolina, and that's our boy out there. Big E from North Carolina. That's our guy. Just wanted to remind you that Big E from North Carolina. That's our guy. Also, if you guys have not had a chance to check out the Raiders Squad show, please do. Because I'm going to tell you, listening to Lincoln Kennedy and Q talk about football is awesome. Because let me tell you something. These two talking about football, they keep it real, they keep it, honest, and it's just good content. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out, please do. Another show they have the repertoire. Thanks, Q. Vader Raider out.
Vader Raider, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And thanks for the props on the Raider Squad show. It's been fun. It's only been a couple shows, but thanks for the props. I appreciate that. And, of course, the extra little history on Metallica playing at the Coliseum. And I do believe that was before that game that you were talking about when they played. And I know that, the lead singer is a big-time Raiders fan, so really good stuff right there. And, yeah, man, our guy in North Carolina is not Big E, it's PE. That's my guy, PE in North Carolina. And it's funny that you brought him up, man. We were just texting just the other day. Really good dude. I got to hang out with him and his wife when they came to town here in Las Vegas. And, yeah, they're fantastic folks. So, we were out there with them, and it was really cool. So, yeah, no, definitely never forget my guy PE in North Carolina. That's my dude. He goes back like you do, man, like from day one when the Locked On Raiders podcast, when I first took over back in 2018, many, many moons ago. So definitely don't forget you, don't forget him, or any others that have been rocking since day one. That is for sure. Definitely appreciate that. Up next, got a tweet from @Clayball44. He said, Q, you're so right on themes making everything more exciting. I immediately thought of when you do crossover Thursdays during the season. Those always get me extra hype for that week's matchup. Yeah, and he's going back talking about the 2025 training camp schedule that I broke down and talked about on Wednesday, and how every day, basically, ever since practice number 5, I think. What is it? Maybe practice number 10. Sorry, the 4th, August 4th. Every practice after August 4th all has a theme on them. Every single one of them. So, yeah, I think it gets everyone more excited. I think it gets the players more excited to see the theme of the day. Competition Wednesday, turnover Thursday, no repeat Friday, right? Tell the truth Monday, bonus day, competition Wednesday. Like, those are cool. I think that's, and I love the way that you tied it in with, with crossover Thursday, because yeah, that is a theme. And I know that's a lot of people's favorite show of the week. So a really good way, Clayball, to put that together. Thanks so much again, @Clayball44 on Twitter. We'll close out with a call from our guy, ABA Ivan Davis, also calling in to chime in on the Geno Smith situation, the little dust-up that he had at the 7-on-7 tournament. Here's ABA Ivan Davis.
What's up, Q? This is ABA Ivan Davis. Want to chime in on the Geno Smith thing. I agree with Smooth. I can't think of his name. I'm sorry for butchering your name like that, my man. But who mentioned about the attitude of Geno Smith. My take is he's got to be smart. He's a black man with a lot of money, and there are a lot of envious people out there, and they're going to say things to try to tear him down. That's generally how it goes for successful black people. Okay, and so he's simply going to have to be smart. The biggest thing he can do, he's got to remember that old life, he has to leave it alone. Okay, I mean, he's earned the right to be where he's supposed to be, but that comes with sacrifice. And the old way that you did do things must be sacrificed, because you just face it, you're in a different stratosphere. You might want to go back to that old life because you came from that, but you can't, not fully. You can do things like tournaments and things like that and teach the kids, but you got to be professional at all times. So I'm with him. This is an in-house matter. Let the media just say what they want to say. Just stay out of the media and handle it in-house. It's a simple conversation you got to have with him. Just, hey, you got to be smart. I mean, you're the face of the organization. Anything you do is going to be put out there, so he just has to be smart. That's all I have to say, Q. Go Raiders.
Thank you, ABA. Appreciate the call, my man. And as I explained earlier, I don't disagree with anything that any of you guys are saying, right? So, yeah, I think that Geno probably has been talked to with Pete Carroll. I don't know if Tom Brady had to talk to him, but I'm sure Pete Carroll, who's got a very good relationship with him, probably talked to him, was like, hey, man, let's make sure that we're doing the right things and maintaining. So I'm sure that's all, nipped in the bud, and I'm sure we probably won't hear anything else from that. But no, I think that you're absolutely right about the situation. I think Smooth Raider brought up some good points. Obviously, the Raven as well sent that text in earlier. Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot that Geno can learn from that situation and that little bit of a dust up. Not to mention, if it really was something that was truly bad, and I mentioned this on Wednesday's show, it could have ended a lot worse. I mean, I've seen youth football games end really, really bad. Right? I mean, we've seen some of those situations. So that's what you don't want. Ultimately, you don't want to wake up and read a story that's like, whoa, how did that happen? How did we get here? That's something that he definitely does not want. But thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Great feedback. No doubt about it on today's show. So that's going to do it for today's show. Coming up tomorrow is the 4th of July. Definitely want to shout out to all the active servicemen and women, as we like to do all the time. Thank them for the opportunity to have the day off and enjoy it and celebrate the 4th of July. We know what it means to us here in this country. Obviously, it's Al Davis's birthday as well. And how I do traditionally, if you're new to this show, for the 4th of July, I do the Al Davis special. John Kingdon, he wrote the book on Al Davis, spent a lot of time side by side with Al Davis, an interview I did from a long time ago, but really good stuff. And I think that it's a treat to hear about the late, great Al Davis. So we'll do that coming up on tomorrow's show for sure, as we finish off the week really strong and head into the weekend. And hopefully everyone has a really good, positive holiday weekend. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.